Hi, it's Billy Joel here on the Billy Joel channel on SiriusXM. To me, it all goes back to playing live and performing and the show and the actual concert. That's where it started. Before I ever made a recording, before I was ever referred to as a recording artist, before there were any albums in my life, I was a performing musician. I played it. Bar mitzvahs, weddings, sweet 16s. I even played for the Gambino family at a couple of their parties. That's how you made your living. You played live. You got all the work in you could get. I give people that advice too. You want to become good? Work. Get as much work as you can. Play as much as you can. Perform as much as you can. Get into live situations as much as you can because that's how you learn. And even to this day, there are acts out there that have these big hit records, but they can't perform live to save their asses. I remember that when I first saw the Rascals, they had a Hammond B organ, which is pretty expensive for guys in rock bands just starting out. But it was great sound. I had this little Vox Continental.
You didn't have a B3? Or
I did with the Hassles.
Yeah, with the Hassles, yeah.
Yeah, Danny Mazer helped me finance it, and I kept paying for it for 5 years. I never made any money because I was paying off. It's a Hammond organ with a Leslie tone cabinet. And a Leslie tone cabinet has a speaker in it that twirls around on a belt. And it gives it a sound like gargling. Yeah. But it's a great sound. And I didn't have a Hammond. I couldn't afford it. And when I got into the Hassles, the manager of the Hassles financed it for me. I paid him back for the rest of my life. I think all those bands had Hammond B3s.
Yeah, that was the organ.
This is pre-synthesizer. This is all.
It was either that or the Vox.
Yeah, the Vox.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers the Dave Clark 5. They had a Vox Continental.
Right.
It was kind of a cheesy sound. Actually, the new wave bands went back to that sound when they were using keyboards. It was real cheesy. Elvis Costello used it a lot. Pump it up, baby. And that's a Farfisa sound or a Vox Continental sound. If anybody knows what we're talking about.
They had that. The Animals used it in
House of the Rising Sun.
Of the Rising Sun.
That's right.
There's a Vox solo. Yeah.
There he is. A house. Question mark and the Mysterians. They had it too.
Yeah, they had it too.
Too many teardrops.
Right.
For one heart. It didn't sound like a piano though. A real cheesy sound. Technology wasn't quite there yet.
No.
Most of those guys who were jazz players who ended up playing on my recordings were enlisted by Phil. I didn't always know who the right guy to get was, but Phil knew all of them because he had worked with them on a lot of different projects, whether with Paul Simon, the Tony Bennett, any of the other acts that he had produced. He knew them all. And whenever we were at a loss for what should be playing this particular line, Phil said, I got the guy. He found Toots Steelmans, the harmonica player, who I'd never heard of him, but he was a brilliant harmonica player from Belgium. I mean, Phil knew all these guys. He just knew all of them. Wilton Felder, he knew Ralph McDonald, Richard T., Steve Gadd, Freddie Hubbard, Phil Woods. We were fortunate enough to get these guys to play on our recordings because they were one of a kind. Every single one of these guys was a virtuoso in their field. And that was really due to Phil Ramone. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of live albums. To me, there's a dichotomy. It's almost an oxymoron. A live album. A concert recording. They're two different things. If you're not at the concert, if you're not at that live event, I don't think you really get, what happened there. You don't see it visually. You're not getting the impact of the PA system. You're not sitting next to somebody who's throwing up on you. You know, there's a lot of things that you don't get from a live album, but you can get spontaneous musical things happening. The arrangements change. The rhythms can be faster. The vocal can be stronger or rougher. It's chancy. But again, I'm not a big fan of the live albums, and some of them were put out by the record company because I was no longer making studio recorded albums anymore.
Billy Joel and his friend Brian Ruggles, making memories.
The five illusions.
The big hair band.
They had the big hair. They had like Hendrix hair.
Well, it was more like bouffants.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it.
No, it was like the Jimi Hendrix Experience kind of hair. It was all teased out.
Yeah, it was all high.
They all had. They were wearing these outfits that we couldn't afford. I'm trying to think.
Probably their mom made for them. No.
They had a lot of choreography. Everybody had some kind of shtick.
Yeah.
I wanted to be on Columbia Records. I was actually negotiating with Atlantic Records too, which was the hipper label. Atlantic had all the hip bands and the jazz guys, Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler. But the Columbia Records label had Bob Dylan. And if anybody was a career artist, it was Bob Dylan. He didn't necessarily sell a lot of records. He didn't make a lot of money for the company, but he was a prestige artist. And so they were the big red one. How do I want to be remembered? I guess being remembered as a songwriter would be good. Someone of his time. We all let go of life eventually, and be nice to be thought of as someone who provided music for his time. Maybe it would help even define that time in later generations. That would be nice. That'd be a nice way to be remembered.